Hi, Steve here, blessedhopeforever.com. This is an update on our timeline that we've been involved in for several weeks. This will probably be the third video concerning that particular timeline. I just want to build on it somewhat, and because it just seems to me like the evidence is piling up for December 21. If you haven't watched the first video, I'd recommend you go back and do that. It's not that old of a video. You should find it in the playlist. I did a video on this timeline, December 21. Then I did a Christmas message, and then I did an update on that, December 21, and this is another update. It's a follow-up. So what I'm about to tell you here in this video, you may not really relate to much of the information unless you are up to date on what we've been talking about concerning December 21. Now, I have known from the very beginning, I expected there would be a lot of blowback. You know, a lot of the naysayers would jump on, well, no man knows the day nor the hour, and he's going to come in a day that's unexpected, and so on and so forth. You really need to stop doing this, Steve. And let me just remind you, okay, these are possibilities, nothing dogmatic. There's no date setting going on here. We have every right to, as God's children, to anticipate his coming and love his appearing to the point of where if we wanted to, we have every right to just, do nothing but watch and every day. And we're sick and tired of this world, and we want to go home. And I think a lot of these people that are negative about all this don't really love his appearing. They may claim to, but they don't really love his appearing, and they probably need to just go on about their own business and not worry about what God is doing in the lives of other people. And so having said that, let me get into what I want to share with you concerning this date, December 21. And again, I'll say if you're not familiar with the background of this, I recommend that you go back and watch the videos concerning it. This is a very special day. I'll start off by telling you that I got a notification from YouTube that said that, well, happy 9th anniversary. So today is the 9th anniversary of Blessed Hope Forever. Now, no one knows the day nor the hour was simply an obvious statement of fact. We will not know. Any rational thinking individual knows that we won't know. Okay? I don't know why people pretend to think that somehow we think we know. I could construct timelines forever and never be 100% certain about any of them. Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know the day on which your Lord will come. But understand this, if the homeowner had known in which the watch of the night the thief was coming, he would have kept watch and would not have let his house be broken into. For this reason, you also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come in an hour you do not expect. You mean like December 21st? Now, if you followed me along in all this, you know what I said in the last video. I gave you my Oklahoma time when we went from light to darkness, from darkness to light, from darkness to light. Now let's calculate the unexpected hour for Jerusalem, because this alignment is probably the most chilling detail yet. We're talking about the winter solstice, the completion of the cycle, UTC time, which is 15:03. Okay, that's 3:03 p.m. The Jerusalem time zone, Israel Standard Time, okay, is UTC plus 2. So Jerusalem time would be 17:03. That would be UTC. That would be 5:03 p.m. 5:03 p.m. Okay, now just think about the thief in the twilight. Look at the sunset time for Jerusalem on December 21. Sunset in Jerusalem is 4:40 p.m. The solstice, 5:03 p.m., which occurs exactly 23 minutes after sunset. Okay, this places the event in the Hebrew time known as Bien Ha-Shemishat, twilight. I hope I pronounced that right. That mysterious space between day and night. The sun of the seventh day has just set. The light of the world, the age of 77 years, has officially gone down. The sky is darkening. This is the precise moment when the Jewish people would be lighting the menorah for the 8th night. Now, in Jewish tradition, the new day begins at sundown. The moment that the solstice hits 5:03 p.m. is the exact moment that the calendar flips from day 7 to day 8. It is the literal twinkling of an eye transition. At 4:39 p.m., it is day 7, completion. At 5:03 p.m., the solstice locks the cycle, and it's firmly day 8, new beginning. The thief comes just as the sun has disappeared and the first stars, the 88 constellations, are becoming visible. So, while I'm chugging coffee here at 9:03 a.m. in Oklahoma, Jerusalem is entering the first watch of the night, lighting the final candle of Hanukkah. And it will be 77 years, 7 months, 7 days since May 14, 1948. Now, if you look at the calendar right now, Sunday, December 14, 2025, you are standing on the exact threshold of that final 7. This is why I'm doing a video today. Here's the precision of the timeline applied to this day. The month, mark, today, May 14, 1948, 77 years later, May 14, 2025. 7 months later, December 14, that's today, 2025. Today, Sunday, December 14, Israel is exactly 77 years and 7 months old. The years are finished. The months are finished. All that remains is the final 7 days. That's what I want you to understand. This is where we're at on the timeline. We have entered the final 7 days. By landing exactly on December 14, the timeline triggers the Noah protocol. Genesis 7:4, for yet 7 days and I will cause it to rain. Starting today, you are entering the final 7-day countdown that leads to December 21. The Hanukkah alignment tonight, Sunday night, December 14, marks the first night of Hanukkah. You light the first candle, the light begins. As you count the 7 days of this final week, you'll be lighting the candles one by one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And on December 21st, you hit the 7th candle in the 7th day of the count simultaneously. It is absolute clockwork. And I remind you, 1948 to today, 77 years, 7 months, this has brought you to the starting line of Hanukkah. The 7 days of Hanukkah walk you to the finish line of the age. if this timeline is correct. 77 years, 7 months are behind you, 7 days are before you. Now, about this unexpected day that our Lord spoke about. If you poll the prophecy community, 90% of eyes are always fixed on Rosh Hashanah, trumpets in September, or Pentecost in May and June. I have firsthand experience on this. I can tell you this is exactly what we've done. Those are the obvious biblical appointments. This is what drove us to do this. By landing on December 21, Hanukkah solstice, the date successfully bypasses the expectations of even the most diligent watchers. Here's why December 21 is the perfect candidate for the unexpected hour. First of all, the Levitical blind spot. Most prophecy students operate strictly within the 7 feasts of Leviticus 23. They assume God must act on one of those Mosaic dates. And again, I'm just as guilty as anyone else of this. The assumption that, the rapture must be on trumpets, last trump, or Pentecost, the birth of the church. Well, here's the reality. Hanukkah is not a Levitical feast. It isn't in the Torah. It appears in the intertestamental period, the Maccabees. So because it isn't on the list of the big 7, most watchers write it off. It creates a theological blind spot, a feast that is legitimate. Jesus attended it, but hidden from the law. And second of all, the hidden bridegroom. There is a profound typology in Hanukkah regarding the bridegroom. The feasts of Moses, Leviticus, these are the dates the Father set for the nation. Hanukkah, this is the date that the people set to rededicate the house for the Father. Okay? Now, if the Father's dates, trumpets, Passover, are for national Israel, perhaps the non-Levitical date, Hanukkah, is reserved for the non-Levitical body, the church. It slips in through the back door of the calendar. And number 3, the winter camouflage. The natural mind assumes a harvest happens in spring or fall. A harvest when the crops are ready, May or September. What is unexpected is a harvest in the dead of winter, December. There's some logic to this. Who gathers fruit in the snow? Well, only a master who has kept the fruit stored in the barn, or you could say the ark, or who is coming to rescue the seed before it freezes. It defies agricultural logic, making it spiritually unexpected. That's my point. And number 4, the long delay, Matthew 25. In the parable of the 10 virgins, the bridegroom tarries. Trumpets, September, the virgins wake up, they trim their lamps. Well, surely he comes now. And then atonement, into September, October. Well, maybe now he's going to come. And then tabernacles, October. Well, he's got to come now. And then comes the long silence of Jeshvan and Kislev. The dates pass, the excitement fades, people go back to sleep. And then at midnight, the solstice, the darkest point, the cry rings out. The delay until December 21 ensures that only those with extra oil are still awake. And I'm a dispensationalist. I believe that can apply to the church as well as Israel. As I said, winter rapture equals winter return. If the rapture happened on Rosh Hashanah, millions would say, hey, we knew that. But if it happens on December 21, a date associated with Gentile holidays, close to Christmas, and a minor Jewish feast, well, it catches almost everyone off guard. And it fulfills the verse perfectly. It is a day that fits the divine pattern 7777. Yet it's a day that the vast majority of the body is ruled out. So today is December 14. The expected feasts of 2025 have all passed. The world has exhaled. The watchers are tired. But the stage is perfectly set for the unexpected. Keep looking up. We're going on. Hi, Steve here at letshopeforever.com. I want to follow up on our last video about December 21. If you watched that video, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, please go back and watch it. Any specific astronomical alignments for the night of December 21? Yes. I want to talk about that and a few other things. The astronomical data for that specific night, December 21, 2025, is startlingly precise. It essentially physicalizes the theological themes that I have identified. I have presented what I believe is a unified theory where astronomy, 88 constellations, winter solstice, history, 1948, 1967, 2017, biology, biography, Trump's age, and theology, Hanukkah, 77-7-7, all align. This timeline appears to strongly indicate that December 21, 2025 is the mathematically perfect end of the current age, the age of grace or the church age. And I want to make it clear that this is a possibility, not a prediction. Now, explored from other angles, this December 21 timeline shows that December 21 is the mathematically perfect start of the final count, the 1260 days leading to the Messianic kingdom in 2032. Now, when you have 2 or more completely independent variables or angles that use different information but land on the exact same date, it moves things from coincidence to pattern. I am not the only one who's talked about December 21, and I don't watch other YouTube videos. December 21st is 1260 days to the Essene Pentecost Feast of Weeks on June 3rd, 2029, which is Israel's 80th Feast of Weeks as a nation. The Jewish Knesset wasn't seated until the New Year of the Trees in 1949, when the Lord placed the first blood moon of the Tetrad on Passover, April 13th, 1949, which is the future date of Apophis in 2029. So looking at a start point, 1949, first Knesset seated in the first blood moon of the Tetrad, the end point, 2029, 80 years later. Now count back 1260 days from a specific Essene feast date in 2029, June 3rd, and you arrive at a start date for a tribulation period, December 21, 2025. Now, here are the specific alignments for the night of December 21, 2025. We're looking at the solstice and the galactic center. I mentioned the return of the light. This is literally what happens on this day. The event I'm talking about is the winter solstice, and that is at 15:03 UTC. UTC, I'll talk more about that. On the winter solstice, the sun aligns with the galactic center of the Milky Way, located between Sagittarius and Scorpio. There is a prophetic angle. From Earth's perspective, the sun sits directly over the dark rift of the galaxy. It is often called the dark mouth or the womb of the galaxy. What does that mean? Well, the timeline of completion, 77-7-7, ends exactly when the sun aligns with the center of the galaxy. Exactly. The moon, the new beginning, I mentioned a new moon. The moon will be a waxing crescent, approximately 2% illuminated. It'll be a tiny, barely visible sliver of light following the setting sun. This sliver marks Rosh Chodesh, the new moon of the month of Tevet, and the alignment, as I noted, the 7th day of Hanukkah, December 21, coincides with the arrival of the new moon. So you have the light of the year, solstice, returning at the exact same moment the light of the month or the new moon returns. And then there's Jupiter, the king in the twins, the position of Jupiter. Jupiter will be shining very brightly in the constellation Gemini, the twins. And the symbolism in that is that in biblical astronomy, or the Mazzaroth, Gemini represents the dual nature of the Messiah, suffering servant versus conquering king, or the union of bride and groom. So what is the connection? Well, Jupiter, the king planet, is sitting right in the middle of this sign of union on the night of completion. And then there's the Ursid meteor shower. The Ursid meteor shower peaks on the night of December 21, 22. On the very night that our 77-year timeline ends, stars will be falling from the sky in the northern hemisphere. They radiate from Ursa Minor, the Little Dipper, Little Bear, which contains Polaris, the North Star, or the fixed point. And then there's the Hanukkah confirmation. I double-checked the Jewish calendar for 2025 to verify my seventh-day claim. Hanukkah starts the evening of December 14, December 21, in the daytime. This is the seventh day of Hanukkah. December 21 in the evening, as the sun sets and the solstice passes, Jews will light the eighth candle beginning the eighth day, the day of new beginnings. Now, if you were to stand outside on the evening of December 21st, 2025, this is what you would see. Looking off to the west, the sun setting into the galactic center, the end of the cycle. Also to the west, a tiny sliver of new moon following it, the start of the month. Turn around and face east, and it's Jupiter, the king, rising in Gemini. That's the union that I mentioned. And to the north, meteors falling from the North Star. It is a celestial closing ceremony for the 77-year period. The sky effectively goes dark, new moon, plus longest night, and then the eighth day begins. Now I want to talk about something else here. The time between October 7, 2023, when Hamas attacked Israel, the beginning of the war, the start of the war, and December 21, 2025 is exactly 807 days counted inclusively. If you count inclusively, meaning you count both the day the war started, October 7, and the day that it ends, December 21. The total is exactly 807. This number connects powerfully to the themes of judgment versus restoration that we've been tracking. First of all, there's the Seth connection, Genesis 5:7. This is the hidden gem. The number 807 appears explicitly in the lineage of the Messiah. The verse states, and Seth lived after he begat Enos 807 years and begat sons and daughters, Genesis 5:7. Seth was the son given to replace Abel. He represents the righteous line that survived the flood. The pattern is that the timeline of the war, 807 days, mirrors the duration of Seth's era of expansion, 807 years. It suggests that out of this conflict comes the appointed seed or a return to the righteous path. Now, if you look at Hebrews, the Hebrew Strong's 807, the word is Ashima. It means guilt or desolation. The definition of Ashima, it's a foreign deity of Hamath. Hamath. The name is derived from a root meaning guiltness, or I will make desolate. If you look at the context, it appears in 2 Kings 17:30, describing the idols brought into the land by foreign nations who didn't fear the Lord. The 807 days represent a period of Ashima, a time of guilt, idolatry, and desolation, or war. The timeline effectively measures out the full measure of this guilt before it ends on the day of completion. If you look at Greek Strong's 807, the word is unseemly, to act unbecomingly, to act dishonorably or unseemly. It is used in the famous love chapter, 1 Corinthians 13:5. Love doth not behave itself unseemly, same word. So the war began on October 7 with an act that was the ultimate definition of unseemly, dishonorable, shameful. The 807 day count marks the duration of that unseemly behavior, contrasting it with the arrival of the era of grace, love, at the end. The inclusive count of 807 days paints a narrative. It is a period of desolation, guilt, and unseemly behavior that is legally measured out, finally giving way to the righteous line of Seth on the day of the new beginning. Now, I want to talk about winter because the whole subject of the season fascinates me. Of all the seasons, spring, summer, fall, winter, it would seem to make sense that this specific era, or this age, church age, would end in winter. I know I thought that would occur in spring, but I'm thinking that it ends in winter. If God is the author of history, he's also the author of the seasons. He would not write the final chapter of an age, I don't believe, in spring, the time of birth, or nor would he do that in summer, the time of labor. What he would do, I think, is he would write it in winter, the season of death, sleep, and the end of the cycle. And we're looking at the death of the year, the solstice. Historically, agriculturally, winter is not just a season, it is the death of the year. The solstice, December 21. This is the moment that the sun dies. It reaches its lowest point in the sky, and the darkness is at its absolute peak. There's symbolism in that. For the age of man, which has been ruled by the cycles of the sun and the moon to end, it must end, I believe, when the sun is physically at the end of its journey. The moment that the solstice passes, December 22, the sun is reborn. And this perfectly mirrors the transition from the end of the age, 7, to the new beginning, 8. The old sun dies on the 7th day, the new sun is born on the 8th. Now, everybody's familiar with the biblical warning, pray that it is not in winter. Jesus himself specifically singled out this season when speaking of the end times in Matthew 24. Pray ye that your flight be not in the winter. Now, while this had a practical application, because travel is hard in winter, many theologians believe every word Jesus spoke carried prophetic weight. He didn't say, pray it isn't in summer, heat, or spring, mud. No, he isolated winter. By ending the age in winter, the timeline fulfills the worst-case scenario regarding the difficulty of the transition, but it also signals that the flight is over. And then there's the Hanukkah connection in John 10:22. There is a striking verse in the Gospel of John that links our Messiah, the temple, and this specific season. It was at Jerusalem, the Feast of the Dedication, and it was winter, says John 10:22. The only time Jesus is explicitly recorded attending Hanukkah, the text goes out of its way to tell us that it was winter. What does that mean? Well, it means that you're seeing a timeline that ends on Hanukkah in winter. It suggests that the Feast of Dedication is inextricably linked to the end of the cold, dark age. Okay? Now, if you look at 1 Corinthians 15, in biblical theology, the new age, resurrection, millennium, is often compared to a harvest. But before a harvest can happen, the seed must die. And winter plays a role. Winter is the season where the seed lies buried in the earth, effectively dead. You cannot have, correct me if I'm wrong, but you cannot have the spring of the millennium until you've had the winter of the tribulation or the end of the age. As far as this timeline we've been looking at, by ending the age on December 21, deep winter, God is planting the seed of the kingdom into the frozen earth, preparing for the spring that begins when the Messiah returns, often associated with Nisan, or the awakening of the earth. And then we have the Song of Solomon, the promise after winter. If this age ends in winter, then the next age begins with the famous promise of Song of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 11, which is read by many as a prophecy of the resurrection or the rapture. For lo, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone, the flowers appear on the earth. You know, for the bridegroom to say the winter is past, the bride must have just endured the winter. So our timeline of 1948 to 2025 is the winter era of struggle and growing darkness. December 21, 2025 marks the final day of that winter. In the very next moment, the king can historically say the winter is past. It just makes perfect narrative sense. So to kind of recap, 1897, First Zionist Congress. That's the start of the 120 years. August, harvest, late summer, the work begins. And then we come to 1948, the start of 77 years. May, spring, the budding of the fig tree. And then we come to 2025, the end of the age. December, winter, completion. The timeline follows the life cycle of the tree. The fig tree blossomed in spring, 1948. It grew through the summer. That's 1967 to 2017. And it now enters the winter of its cycle this year, 2025, shedding its leaves to prepare for the new growth of the kingdom. This timeline structure is incredibly clean. It creates a perfect 2,000-year parenthesis, the church age, ended by the work of Christ. I would love to be able to give you a better visual breakdown of the timeline showing how the ancient markers, AD 33, and the modern markers, 1948, 2017, all converge on that final 2033 AD date. I look at it like the master timeline, AD 33 to AD 2033. AD 33, the crucifixion, resurrection. The start of the 2 days, Jesus departs, the church age begins. Then you have the 2,000-year gap. And after 2 days will he revive us, Hosea 6:2. Oh my gosh, this adds such strength to this whole entire argument. 1897, First Zionist Congress, the conception, the 120-year countdown begins, Genesis 6:3. 1947, UN petition to Palestine, November 29, the legal foundation, 50 years of Jubilee after 1897. And then 1948, rebirth of Israel, May 14. The fig tree blossoms, the 80-year generation begins. I've thrown in 2001, 9/11, the global war on terror. That was a major shift. The towers fell, the Pentagon was struck, war resulted, and war with who? Well, I've done other videos on that. 2017, Revelation 12 sign, the Great American Solar Eclipse, the first eclipse, 70 years from 1947, the warning era begins. And then 2024, the second Great American Solar Eclipse, April 8, the crossing out is complete, 7 years after 2017, the sign of Jonah for Nineveh, America. And then 2025, 2026, Israel, 77, the departure, December 21, in winter, the age of grace ends. And then 2029 would be the midpoint. You're looking at Apophis, the abomination of desolation, April 13, Apophis, the flight of a woman. And then 2032, the second advent, the return, winter, 2032, the 7-year tribulation ends. And 2033, the kingdom age, the third day, exactly 2,000 years since AD 33. Sure makes sense to me. that Hosea 6:2 prophecy, the 2,000-year day. This is the strongest theological anchor in this discussion. After 2 days will he revive us, in the third day he'll raise us up, and we shall live in his sight. Hosea 6:2. If 1 day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, as Peter said in 2 Peter chapter 3, then 2 days is 2,000 years. The start, AD 33, the resurrection and the ascension, the duration, 2,000 years, the church age, the end, AD 2033, the result of that, the third day, the millennial kingdom begins. And this Apophis alignment, 2029, the math supports this terrifyingly well. Timeline start, December 21, this year. The Apophis flyby, April 13, 2029. This is exactly 3 years and 4 months into the tribulation. This asteroid flyby, which will be visible to the naked eye, occurs right at the climax of the first half, potentially signaling the stars falling or the power of the heavens shaking, associated with the opening of the abyss or the sixth seal. The double solar warning that we so casually sort of not, I don't know, hey, that's really something, and we didn't talk much more about it. 2017 and 2024, the two eclipses, the August 21, 2017 first eclipse warning, and then April 8, 2024, the second eclipse, judgment. The span, roughly 7 years. The purpose being these eclipses marked an X over the U.S., the primary Gentile superpower, likely signaling the end of the times of the Gentiles, leading into the 2025-2026 transition. The 2033 completion, the symmetry of AD 33 to AD 2033 is undeniable. Jesus' ministry being 3.5 years, the tribulation, 7 years, which is 2 halves of 3.5. He ascended in AD 33, he returns to rule in AD 2033. Folks, this is the definition of a unique convergence. We will never see this math again because the cycles involved are too long to repeat within a human time frame or even the civilization's time frame. The gears that have clicked into place won't align like this again for millennia, if ever. The 2,000-year gear, Hosea, requires waiting another 2,000 years AD to see a day 4. That would be the year AD 4033. The 120-year gear, Genesis 6, requires another global flood warning cycle. The 80-year gear, Psalm 90, requires the birth of a new world order to age out again. The 77-year gear, redemption, requires the rebirth of a nation to count from again. To have AD 33, 1948, 2017, and 2025 all point to the same 2033 finish line is a statistical singularity. It isn't just a pattern, it is a signature. I don't know how many more videos I'm going to make before December 21, but I want to put this out for your consideration. It's been a genuine privilege to walk through this timeline with you. The architecture from 5/7 of 2025 to the winter completion of 2033 is truly remarkable. For those out there who are, I've gotten comments, see how many timelines you're going to do, how long are you going to keep putting out time? They fail to realize what I'm even doing. These are possibilities, but I think this is a strong one. So as a final note, I mentioned the return of the light, December 21, the event being winter solstice, 1503 UTC time. UTC stands for Coordinated Universal Time. It is the primary time standard by which the world regulates clocks. Astronomical events like the winter solstice happen at one specific simultaneous moment for the entire planet. It doesn't happen at different times as the world turns. The Earth reaches that specific point in its orbit at a single instant. Scientists use UTC as the single master clock so everybody can calculate their local time from it. Now, what this means for me, I am Central Standard Time here in Oklahoma. I am 6 hours behind UTC. Therefore, on Sunday, December 21, 2025, with the UTC time being 3:03 p.m., my time would be 9:03 a.m. 9:03 a.m. So maybe you can translate that into your own time. The moment of completion that we're watching for, when the solstice hits and the timeline ends, this will happen for me at 9:03 a.m. on that Sunday morning.